Morning traders, welcome to this live currency strength indicator table video with me, John, on this Monday the 16th of October. Here you can see we have our live tables in front of us. We're going to be taking a look at the pound today and the Australian dollar versus the US dollar and the Swiss franc. Swiss franc still holding that strength, which is quite interesting. We're seeing a bit of a pullback on Aussie and pound pairs at the moment, so it'd be interesting to see if we can get into any kind of opportunities on that pullback potential at this current moment in time. If we just bring in the Discord server and we can just have a quick look at the dashboard this morning, you can see, like I said, pound gaining a little bit of strength here. The yen definitely weakening at the moment, so market in a bit more of that risk on tone at this current moment in time. And you can see Aussie building some strength as well. So that's kind of going against what the tables are suggesting to us at the moment in terms of live momentum, but obviously we know that can swing into sort of that higher time frame mode again. Now I am watching cable, which is pound US dollar right now. We can see that we're starting to get a little bit of an opportunity potentially developing on this market. Now before we jump into that, I do have to let you know there is a little bit on the slate today. We've got the Bank of England members speaking today. We've also got some data out of the US and CAD, so lots of sort of stuff going on with the pound today, which could obviously be impacted by the news could impact the currency today. Now I have got a couple of alerts set. Now let's just break down what's happened over last week, and then we can kind of move on to what could potentially happen this week. Now, last week we had a strong bearish close. We had two sort of bullish candlesticks, which suggested that we'd actually get a bit more of a pullback in terms of price action. Last week we attempted to sort of hold above 123. If I just go down into the sort of time frames here, sorry, on the daily chart. Let me just bring in the watermark actually, so we'll be able to see that. On the daily chart here, you can see, let me just move it over slightly, that we came up in towards the sort of the 123 handle. We failed. Dollar actually gained a lot of strength, and then we've traded through this sort of bullish trend line, and we closed Friday bearish. So I'm wondering if this momentum will continue, and will it push us into the lows here at 1.2050. Those lows formed back on the 4th of October. So that's what I'm aiming for here, I think, for an opportunity here on pound US dollar. If we go to the 4-hour time frame, we can see that we've been in that sort of upward trend that has transitioned. The market's making a lower low, lower high potentially at the moment. I was looking to see if price would pull back into these 4-hour highs at 1.22. Doesn't look like it's doing it right now, but I will still keep the alert there. I am going to watch cable sort of hour on hour basis, because there's a couple of areas that I like. Obviously, the one thing we can look at is for a bit of a stochastic entry. That entry would come if we saw K below D and we breach the 80 level. So let's say this candle remains fairly bearish and we get that, then we could look to potentially short that candlestick with the opportunity to trade down to 1.2050. Alternatively, we can see the 50 SMA running through around this high that just sits below the 1.22 handle. So if price rallies into this level here and then rejects it, we could look to then potentially trade off the back of that as well. The third opportunity I like is another retest of those 4-hour highs at 1.2215. A rejection there can obviously lead to a bit of downside as well. A breach above this level I think would negate the bearish bias at that time, and we'd probably wait to see how price reacted to the 1.23 again. But whilst price is kind of below this 50 SMA at the moment, I like the idea of being short. If we just have a little look back recently, when we do see price either break below the averages, let's just say we had the consolidation here, we break below, price can remain bearish until we break above it, and then when we break back below it, it can offer us some bearish moves again break back above, price tends to move higher, and we're below it at the moment. So I want to be looking for those bearish opportunities on cable, as long as we can obviously stay below that 50 SMA as well, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm kind of looking at here. Potential bearish setup forming with the opportunity to trade that down to 1.2050. The first alert is set at 1.2188, which are these kind of minor highs here that formed on Friday. Alternatively, I'll look to see if the stochastic at the 10 a.m. close gives us any kind of opportunity. If not, I'll sit on my hands, wait to see how it reacts to this level. If it breaches this level, I'll see how it reacts to the previous 4-hour highs. So that's the kind of plan there for cable. We've also got Aussie US dollar as a chart of interest as well. Aussie US dollar, really interesting as well. Below the 50 SMA. If I just pop up back to the daily chart, the only difference being with this chart is that it has been fairly choppy. The resistance at 165 just through here has held up really well though. Every time we've kind of tapped into that zone, price has rejected. We attempted last week to try and get back towards that level, but 164.34 found the rejection. We're now at supporting lows, so this is a little bit different to cable because cable's not at the lows yet, whereas Aussie US dollar is. So it might start to find some support. You can see it was support back here as well on the 4th of November 2022 and support here on the 4th of October. What I don't want to see is price starting to make new highs. So if it's going to reject, it needs to reject where it's kind of at now, because obviously there are these minor highs in here and they're the previous Friday highs. Sorry, my mouse is double clicking, so it keeps throwing off there. But we do have, again, sort of a potential opportunity forming here. We've got the SMA being tested at the moment, the stochastic potentially turning bearish. My only fear with this one is that we don't have the risk reward unless we went really tight. So we'd have to go for like a 16 pip stop to try and target these lows, which can be fairly tight on this currency pair, and especially, and we don't technically have the stochastic set up just yet. Obviously the hourly hasn't closed yet, so we're working off the sort of previous hourly at the moment, and it hasn't quite give us that strong crossover that I like to see as well on the stochastic. But these highs, if they are broken, it would probably lead to a little bit more upside here. So that is my kind of area at the moment, which is struggling. That area is 0.6329, 0.6350 is from a previous level of support, which we expected to turn into resistance. It didn't quite do that. So we can probably get rid of that one, to be honest. From a daily chart point of view, the resistance is up here at 64.34. You can see how price can sort of react to previous lows and previous highs. So at the moment, I'd say we're in a bit more of a support area. If we breach 0.63 to the downside, so, you know, 62.83s and below, I think that would open the door for a move lower to 6,200. So maybe we wait to see if that flips, closes below, and then tomorrow we maybe look for a move on Aussie US dollar. Like I said as well, on the dashboard we saw Aussie gaining strength, pound gaining strength. What we don't want to see, we don't necessarily want to see that. We want to see that kind of change. But pound's got a little bit more to the downside, I feel. Let's go on to Aussie Swiss then. So Aussie Swiss, last week we talked about Aussie Swiss in a little bit of depth. We were looking to see if price, when it breached the 57.50 level, if it continues to push more towards this 56.24. Now we have breached that level. I can turn that into a resistance band. And there's a few levels here of interest. Obviously that 57.50 is still of interest. The only problem with that is it'll breach Friday's high. I don't like the thought of that. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, we discussed kind of two options last Friday, and one of them was if you wanted to look for the break of this low for a short, then you could go with a really aggressive stop loss. So on Friday you may have had a chance to be sort of 2R up. If you left it open, it would have been 3.6 and you're coming back to break even now. I have got an alert set here, and again I'm just kind of watching this zone really. Are we going to reject in and around 57.25s or around about the 57.15s? If we do get a rejection there, then it could lead to another bit of downside. And on the hourly especially, we could potentially have a setup here. So we've got obviously that consolidation where sellers won and price broke out. So price is coming to sort of test that zone. Stochastic is bullish at the moment here, but we also have the 50 SMA. So let's say we get kind of like a bearish rejection at 57.20. We get a crossover in the stochastic. I think that would be an opportunity to get short targeting the immediate lows. If it then breaches these lows and continues lower, I think then we've got a really good opportunity down to 56.22s, 23s. My original theory was if price came up to 57.50, we can short 57.40 for a move down. So that one still technically stands at this current moment in time. I'll let you know if that changes. But I don't like the idea of price pulling back here, continuing to the upside. My only concern, I'm just clearing off a little bit of this chart. My only concern is we're on this daily chart now, and you can see this area here, which is these lows that formed on the 5th of September. Obviously, price went on quite an aggressive rally there. It moved from 56.70 all the way up to the 5900s. So there's obviously strong buying coming from the market at that point. We now tap that level and strong buying has come back in again. So I think if I was going to try and trade this market in particular, I'd literally be looking for that move back down into this support zone. I won't be looking necessarily for that bigger move. I think the sensible thing would be if we do get a short opportunity form here, we look to short it down to sort of 56.80, this zone. We bank some of the move stops to break even, and then if it does trade through, then it's a bonus for us for that move down. Let's go on to the other chart of interest then, which is pound Swiss. I haven't really looked at this chart actually for a long time. You can see I've still got sort of yellow drawings on there. The reason why I don't look at this chart is probably because the reason of why we're looking at it now, Swiss pairs can range quite aggressively, and it can be very difficult to trade trending conditions in that way. So we usually kind of look for those trending conditions, but you can see this sort of 1.1075 area down here has been a huge support point for pound Swiss. We've now breached that. So I always kind of look at where's the next level where those buyers stepped in, and it was down here where price is at now, which is around about the 1.0900 zone and just above that. So we've obviously finding some buyers there, so that's going to be an important level. Obviously down here as well, which were the lows back in 2022. Those are going to be very important as well if price was to sort of breach that level. I mean, there's obviously lots of buying coming in down at that point. So I'm looking at this thinking, is there an opportunity for us? Potentially. Would I like to short it from here? Not really, because we're in the middle of that sort of area. Like I said, I like to be looking to short from previous highs or long from lows, and I don't really see the option here to short right now because obviously we're at that low. So I'd expect a little bit of support to come in and maybe a drive up into this 1.1077 again. If we get some kind of top in nature here, that would be good. If not, we may breach and hit the sort of 112 before seeing any kind of downside at that point, because obviously that's where some selling pressure has obviously come back in the past. And just kind of show you that sort of, these highs in here, price comes into it, it rejects it, moves to the downside. These highs in here, price comes in, it rejects it, moves to the downside. Where's it finding support? All at these lows in here. And as a trader, you're looking at this thinking, well, where do I want to be short and long from? And it's, we're looking at these areas here as the sort of example for that. I want to be long in at where buyers are getting in before, and then shorting from where sellers are getting involved in the market. So getting involved there for a short doesn't make too much sense to me. that's why I kind of like cable, you know, although it's not at a daily high. If we look at 4 hour, you know, it's potential to come back into those 4 hour levels before a downward move, or the hourly coming back into these little hourly highs there, maybe something to watch out for. So that's my sort of focus pair going into today. I think the sort of better options are pound, US dollar, Aussie, Swiss. But yeah, covered those markets there. Keep an eye on the tables. Obviously they change and they update every 5 minutes 24/7, so you've got the option here to log in and look at those changes as they happen. On the slate today, not too much in terms of high impact, but there's definitely some news to be aware of, so keep an eye on that as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.